Today on the Daniel Baldwin Show, New York City has spoken and Mandami is now mayor. Plus, change. Why is change so hard? Coming at you now. Hello and welcome to the Daniel Baldwin Show. Let's get right to viewer mail. Hey DB, this is Charlotte from Cincinnati, Ohio. Charlotte, hi, how are you? And thank you for writing your questions in. Charlotte says, hey DB, looks like Mandami won. Okay, so yes, he has won. He won by 9 or 10 points, which is about the spread they had predicted. Now keep in mind though, which makes this interesting, why I talk about the number he won by, because had Sleva and Adams jumped in and supported Cuomo, it was a 1-point race. So what does that tell you? But let me address this accurately for what my opinion of it is. If Curtis Sleva didn't back Cuomo, knowing he had no chance of beating Mandami, no chance, why would he have stayed in the race? Why, even if Cuomo was the lesser of two evils, even if he was the one that aligned with Sleva's interests better and Sleva's contingency, his people, why didn't he, even at the last minute, say, hey, listen, we're losing, we're going to get killed? Because he didn't have a chance. He got, 7 or 8%, but that 8% on top of the 10 points that Cuomo lost by would have tightened this race up. Particularly if he'd done it a couple weeks before, he could have rallied. And, Adams had 1%, about not even 1%. And that makes 9. So you get the math. It would have been pretty close. But I always look at when someone doesn't do that, why? Why didn't they do that? So is there a part of the Republican Party, is there a part of those people in the know on Capitol Hill in reference to New York City that they wanted Zoran to win? Did they want him to win? Did they really want him to win? Are we going to try to expose an inefficiency in New York City with this guy being mayor? Are we going to try to take advantage of the fact that they elected a devout Muslim who was going to be extra tough on the Jews in New York and the Jewish population in New York? So I don't know, maybe I can't help but think subversive. I can't help but think that someone could have got to Curtis Sleva and said, hey man, you got to back Cuomo right now. I mean, you're not going to win him. But he didn't do that. He stuck to his guns right to the last minute, ensuring the fact that Mandami would win the election. So I look for some kind of a play with the Republican Party and the Jewish community in New York. And I think exactly what I told you. And listen, when I say things that come to me or things that I'm able to derive from material and tendencies and experience that I have when I render an opinion. Sometimes it's just a gut feeling or a vision that I have about it. But I hope this is wrong. Anything I say obviously can change, can be prevented. I hope there isn't some dramatic amount of violence in New York or no one gets killed or anything terrible happens to anyone, because I think this could get really, really ugly. A mayor of New York City that opposes Israel. Wow. I mean, look at Charlie Kirk. If this turns out to be an inside Israeli job, which a lot of information, his security team, people that wanted him eliminated, they didn't want him exposing more information. A lot of deals going on behind people's backs on this one. Candace Owens seems to have some interesting things that she's coming out with. And I kind of watch. I use, like I said, my common sense of knowing how a lot of these people really operate. As I accurately predicted before, I said there will be American troops, and they could be reservists, they could be regular army, but they will be on the streets of American cities after Trump is sworn in. And I said this, a year ago, over a year ago. I said this a year and a half ago. It started what I clearly saw, occupation of American troops on the streets in American cities, because it's gotten so lawless. It's gotten so bad. And so many people want to take, show 2 blocks burning in Los Angeles and pretend that that's the whole city. Wag the dog, they can make it look like it's this terrible occurrence going on there. But the fact that there was a single police vehicle, with how hard the job is for a Los Angeles Sheriff's Department police officer, or state facility, local police, any of them that put their life on the line to keep us safe. And you're, throwing rocks at them from overpasses and just crazy stuff. Yeah, I agree with the president. And guess what? When it first started, there was enough Democrats that were jumping on the bandwagon to claim foul. This is not the way it's supposed to go. But let me tell you, GOP urges Democrat governor to deploy National Guard to Charlotte as crime surges. GOP request follows Trump's administration's National Guard deployment to 6 other urban areas. Let me read to you what's going on in Charlotte. Recently, the city faced 8 homicides in 7 days. The murder rate in uptown Charlotte is now 200% higher than it was a year ago. The letter states, according to the Fraternal Order of Police, aggravated assaults involving knives and guns have risen from 86 in 2024 to 111 in 2025. The personal strong-arm robberies have increased from 26 to 31 in the same period. Republican Mark Harris, RNC, one of the letter's authors, said the request doesn't just come from the state's congressional delegation. This is not just my idea. This is the Fraternal Order of Police that had come saying that they believed it was important in asking the governor and the mayor to step up and do it. Harris said, alluding to the similar letter published to the Charlotte Mecklenburg law enforcement earlier this year. So it's getting bad in some areas, and not all of Charlotte, not people of Charlotte are bad people, not blah, blah, blah. You have a certain amount of dollars to hire a certain amount of law enforcement people. You have your veteran law enforcement people that train and get these younger guys and girls ready to get out on the street and enforce. And that's done, those numbers of police officers, men and women, that you hire have to do with the size of your population and the occurrences. How often does the phone ring? Is the necessity to have X amount of police officers over this size population in a relatively calm area? Maybe you can get away with not having as many per capita police officers. And then in other areas, when they start getting the advantage, the criminals, it snowballs into a bigger effect. That sounds like what's going on in Charlotte right now. It sounds like even the law enforcement of Charlotte are like, hey, what do you want us to do? If we send 10 squad cars we have to 25 different calls we have per hour, how do you do that? What happens to the guy who calls in position number 107? He doesn't see anybody for hours. It could be a domestic dispute that turns violent or someone gets killed. Who knows? One thing for sure is that city officials in Charlotte are feeling the burn. And when we first turned around and we watched Washington, D.C., Chicago, and other cities where the president turned around and said, I don't recognize this city anymore. And no, we're not going to listen to a handful of Democratic politicians that get hundreds of millions of dollars in support from the federal government that they distribute in some kind of bullshit way. Let me say it again. And they distribute that money amongst their friends in a bullshit way. That's what they do in some of these cities. So they don't want to turn that candy store flow of cash off. They don't want to do that. So we've got the program to research academic, blah, 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 in inner city, African-American, to spoil it down to, so we can have a Hispanic, we could have a white, we could have an African-American, all these studies and groups that are going to take a look, and they send all this money out. The city gets the money and says, yeah, we're going to fund another years on that study. And the study's $3 million, and there's 19 people, and 2 of them are the heads of that whole study. They're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to oversee some bullshit thing. This is why they don't want National Guardsmen to come in. Because if you guard it down, if you deploy our troops, so they're already getting paid, by the way, and you deploy them and use them effectively, look at Washington, D.C. now. Don't talk to a politician, right or left, Republican or Democrat. Don't talk to somebody who lives in one of the affected areas. And they'll tell you, I can walk to the store. I'm not as afraid. It's taken some getting used to. But my goodness, there's far less criminal element on the street right now. They moved a lot of it out. They arrested. They really cleaned it up. They cleaned it up. When you have a storm, I want you to imagine. Again, I use analogies sometimes because I try to make it as simple for people to understand. What happens after one of those bad hurricanes? Those category 4 or 5s down south, where Florida gets nailed, or recently Jamaica, just devastation going on there as we're trying to straighten them out a little bit. But what do you do after first? You look for lives. You look to, are there people alive that we can say? And then you clean it up. You clean it up. You bring in state, federal, world programs that comes in. They clean up all the debris. They get it all cleaned up. Save as many lives as we can. Let's get it all cleaned up. Then we rebuild. You got to clean it up before you can rebuild it. Charlotte, it's when you get that wrestling hold on someone where they tap out. They go, no, stop. Charlotte Police Department officers and the state are in over their head now. And it's not their fault. It's not that they can't do their job. They're doing a great job. They're just outnumbered. They're outnumbered. So, they're asking. Remember before they complained? I was bringing up about Chicago, about the mothers that are walking their kids to the school bus or to the school. They're not complaining. They're not complaining. They love it. Washington, D.C., people that live in D.C., I have a lot of friends in D.C. They're like, you wouldn't recognize it. It's so different right now. So much safer. The president wasn't going to have it. Now they're calling the White House. Now cities that are in trouble, that have lost their way a little bit, and it happens. It can happen. Not bad people, not bad law enforcement. They need a little help. Let's give them the help. Let's send the troops in. Let's put them on the right corners with cameras running on, body cameras to document what's going on, and let's clean it up. These people are asking for federal assistance to clean up their beautiful city. Charlotte's a beautiful city. Beautiful place. The Carolinas are absolutely stunning. One of my favorite places to go, my wife and I and the family. We vacation in North and South Carolina all the time. So I say clean it up. Go in there and get it now. Today's show, we just finished up the election in New York, and I concentrated a lot about that. My feelings that I thought, and I said, I hope I'm wrong, that it doesn't, certainly nothing happens to this guy who got elected or his family or anybody else. But I think when you put this much tension in a box like this, it's like, imagine taking two aggressive dogs and putting them in a very small room, like a bathroom. How long before you expect that, to blow up and turn into a disaster for one of the two dogs? And that's kind of how I feel that this pressure cooker is going on in New York right now. But I want to read this to you. I'm going to put this one. I looked up in the dictionary, change. Make someone or something different, alter or modify. Both parties voted against proposals to change the law. Replace something with something else, especially something of the same kind that is newer or better substitute for one or the other. She decided to change her name. These are the examples at the end. So changing, replace something. That can be a behavior, that can be a substance, that can be a political candidate, that can be a spouse. There's lots of things you can change. You can change your clothes too. It's just, again, you're substituting something else in. Why should we change? Why do things need to change? We should change to foster personal and professional growth, gain resilience, and adapt to an ever-evolving world. Change allows for new opportunities, the breaking of old, unhelpful habits, and can lead to new skills, greater confidence, and a more fulfilling life. Without change, life can become stagnant and opportunities can be missed. Wow. And I'm going to go right into the last one. I want to have all three of these in a row for you to hear. So be patient. What do you need to do to change? To change, you must first identify areas for improvement and set clear goals, then create a plan and take consistent action. This requires self-awareness to understand what's holding you back and a commitment to sustained effort. Building a support system, seeking accountability, and being patient with yourself are all key components of a successful and lasting change, according to Psych Central. Okay. Well, there is the Merriam-Webster version, the dictionary version of what it is, what change is, why we change, and how we go about changing. So I look at the world and how the world, I'm able to look at how things were in the past, and as I study more about what got us, I think it's important that we know what gets us where we are. The changes that have occurred in basic life for me, the changes that occurred in our country, the changes that have occurred, the direction that we've been going in for like the last 30 years or so, since really post-Kennedy, after Kennedy, I lost a lot of faith, when I look back now. So are we going in a direction that I want us to go in? We're cleaning up. We're at that stage where we got to rip a bunch of stuff out. To get to a cavity, you got to dig down in there and drill it all out and clean it all out. And then you put medicine in there and you cover it and then you take it back out and you fill it. And you got to clean it up. Anything that's worth fixing or significantly changing to grow usually requires a step down method of cleaning it up first. That's definitely what's going on, I think, right now in the White House. I'm very happy with that change. I'm very happy. I'm happy to contribute more right now. I'm happy to live in a place of division, if that's what is required. But not all change. Obviously, I am not a supporter of what happened in New York City. But sometimes you need to change in a negative way, if that's your opinion, and follow the logic. We're going to now track this guy and track New York City in the direction New York goes in. We're going to see what happens as a result of what I believe was the voice of change in New York. So the old guard of Cuomo, Adams, they didn't see Curtis, actually he probably would have been a better governor for sure than Mandami. I don't know what Mandami's done. I don't even know of a job that he's had for more than a few months since he graduated from college. But so how that qualifies him to run the most powerful city in the world, or one of the most, and certainly the biggest and most powerful city in the United States, is beyond me. But listen, they got what they wanted. They put this guy in office, a socialist and a devout Muslim, in the second largest city of Jews in the world, besides Tel Aviv, I believe, is New York City. So let's see what happens. I mean, sometimes you make those changes and you have to be wrong. You have to take a look over there. It's like the guy who has an affair. He looks over the fence, he sees the woman who just moved in a bikini, and he starts smirking around. And next thing you know, he ends up over there doing something terrible to his relationship, and he wants to come home, and he realizes he messed it up. He messed it up really bad. And coming home probably isn't going to be an option anymore. I hope that's not the case for New York. I hope this doesn't spin out of control so badly that we have a civil unrest there. But I think that's what we're looking at. I think that New York has made a statement that it wants to change. The city especially wants things to be different. They need a change. This guy offered the most significant change. I think they're going to find that somewhere in between might have been better. Maybe this will spark the Democrats, because it's going to rock the Democratic Party too. Worse than the Republicans. I think the Republicans are looking at it kind of laughing, going, wait till we see what this guy does. Because I think it's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly. If the Democratic Party loses the support of the Jewish community in New York, that's a huge blow. That's a big financial blow. That's a big blow back home to Israel, to Tel Aviv, to the people of Israel, that they can no longer count on New York City politically. This is a bigger thing than you think, or maybe you already know, and I'm not as smart as I think I am. But it has to start. It has to start with a desire to be better. That's what change is for me. Change comes from me. It's not always easy, and it's not always something that it could be very painful. But if it starts with the desire to be better, if it had anything to do with being a better husband, I would do it. I would do it. If it meant anything to do with my wife saying, thank you, baby, I really appreciate that, I would do it. I would do it. I don't always get it right. I try very hard to make my wife happy, because it goes God, and then my spouse, Deasia, and then my children. And so, I try really hard as a husband and a father. So there's certain things that I would be immediately willing to. Sometimes, in this case, it's not that. It's not that I have a built-in clock that would answer that question unequivocally. Yes, I would do that if it made my wife happier. That's not what I'm talking about now. I'm talking about when you're foundering. New York, for me, that's my home. Long Island, spent a lot of time in the city, started my acting career in New York City. I identify as a New Yorker. That's where I'm from. I have what I call a New York mentality. My wife grew up in Jersey. We both identify that. We have that kind of shrug it off, let's just get the job done kind of thing, she and I. What makes us good partners, part of it, is that East Coast, Upper East Coast mentality. Boston through Philly, that kind of thing. As you start getting south of Philly, you start getting into the South. That's a little different. Atlanta, where I live now, very different than New York mentality. So New Yorkers, I think, were screaming in this election of, we don't like where we're at. We don't like where we were going. A lot of people are criticizing the current administration. They're criticizing Trump for where things are right now. Well, this is the effect of, if I'm going to be judged by how much money my gas station is making, but we had a fire there and I have to rebuild the building and I have to rip up the foundation and I have to put in new toilets and I have to put in new electric. I got to rebuild. I got to tear it down and clean it up first and then I rebuild. Well, we haven't even been in office now, the Republicans, with this administration for a year, not even a year. And we've ripped a lot of stuff down. And now some people don't understand why we're ripping them down. And again, I can only tell you that in order to refurbish this, we have to tear some stuff out and it takes a little time. But you'll see the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow soon enough. The brilliance behind going at it the way they are. In other places, in other cities, they're reluctant to make that change. It scares them. The idea that for Chicago people, particularly Democrats, that they're going to have police officers on the street. Ask a Chicago police officer if he could work in conjunction with guys with high-powered rifles, standing right next to him saying, yeah, no, you're not going to be a threat anymore to the people of Chicago. You're not going to, we're unable to get this under control ourselves because there's a lot of money that comes to the city by not having it under control. So now the federal government steps in and says, yeah, we're going to take control. We're not going to feed you this war chest of nearly $1 billion anymore in Chicago. We're not going to do that. So a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people don't realize why there's such political unrest in some places, because they have funding already, and they would lose that if the crime was cleaned up. In the interim, there's the people that actually live there. There's the moms and dads and the kids that occupy certain streets. I lived in Baltimore for a long time, and a lot of row houses. I used to be very intrigued by row house, because you can hear what's going on in the house next door. I lived in 2 of them, so you could really hear what's going on a lot. You know the other people's business from yelling and fighting and whatever it is. Ask those people if they're happy. The row house Baltimore people. There's another city that has some really beautiful things about it, and this definitely has a huge crime rate and problems there. So maybe we'll use some of our brothers and sisters in the military to go in and help clean it up. I think that's a great idea. I think that you're going to see Charlotte's going to vote. They're going to ask the president, and he's going to send people. He's going to send troops in and make it safe in Charlotte again. Change. Don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid of change. And listen, sometimes you have to try things out. There's it's even like the elections. There was X amount of people here for Harris and X amount for Trump, and the Electoral College, and it was pretty close. Right up until the day of the election. At least I told you it didn't matter. He's going to win all 7 swing states, and he did. But still, it was still a relatively close election. And he represents change. He's not going at it like he did. He learned from the first time. He came out the door guns blazing, like he's gonna make some changes. And the bitching that everyone's doing about exactly why we elected him. I voted, I turned on the Democratic Party, and I decided to vote Republican, and specifically for him, because I was, again, just like I think is going on in New York, I was so desperate to see some kind of change. I looked at my country and how they had, and the whole representation of woke, and does everyone have a right? And yes, I mean, believe what you want, gay lifestyle, transgender this, take religion out of schools, take patriotism and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. We need to have transgender males come into the school and read poetry to 4th graders. I mean, and everyone has rights. All these people have all these rights. Again, if you're at a transgender school, or if you're at a school where you ask the parents ahead of time to sign a thing for my kid to be able to go sit in on the transgender poetry reading class, then go and do that. Go and do that. But don't subject my kid who can't say a prayer in school or can't say the Pledge of Allegiance and salute the flag to his country. That's been taken away, the ability to do that, because there are people that objected to having that and having their children subjected to it. I mean, I get so tired, my head hurts thinking about how crazy this has all become. So no, I don't believe in the whole woke thing. I don't believe. Do what you want. Do on a personal level. Do whatever you want. It's like abortion. Listen to my stance on abortion. Listen to what I'm telling you. Tell me if you're not in the same boat as me. Do I think I should be able to tell my next door neighbor that their daughter should have an abortion? Do I think I should tell my next door neighbor that their daughter's not allowed to have an abortion? No, I don't believe either one of those things are my right. Do I believe that the little girl next door with her parents, if she's underage or if she's even just 18, that she should be able to have the right to go have an abortion? She can choose whatever she wants. If it were me and you were to ask me about what I would do, I would say, no, I wouldn't have an abortion. I believe that having an abortion is taking the life of an unborn fetus, which is not what I believe God would want me to do and what I believe. I don't believe I have the right to tell you what to do. I think you're going to choose and you're going to face up for your choices that you made. At the end, you're going to have to find out, and you will find out, and I will find out who was right. You know, we may go in and there, into heaven, and there's the gay lounge with all the gay people hanging out and smoking cigarettes and having cocktails and talking about what a beautiful day it is in heaven. Okay? Then I was wrong. There may be a section of, whatever. I think you get the point. I think you get the point when I say we're going to find out ultimately who was right. I don't have a right, and I don't want to have a right to make any decisions about you or what you do. I only want to make sure I have the right to live my life within a belief system that I believe and not be told by others what I am or am not allowed to do. I don't want it, just like you don't want to. I want to be able to, if my kid and I want to have prayer in my school, why can't it be like in the NFL where the guys run down to the end zone and they say a quick prayer? Why can't we do that? They make time for them to do that. They show it on camera all the time. So why can't we do that? Don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid of change. Change can teach us. In New York City, they voted for a big change. What does that tell you? New Yorkers are tired of the way it's going right now. They're tired of it. Not how it's been going for the last 8 months. Years and years and years and years it took to get New York where it's at now. It took all 4 years of Biden to run that city into the ground. So let's see what this guy does. I mean, again, I'm open. I am. I don't agree with it. I think it's dangerous, and I think you're going to find out I was right. But maybe if this guy can instill any kind of goodness that rallies the hearts of New Yorkers. 9/11 came, and it changed New York City. It changed the heart of New York. It did. It'll maybe never be the same, but I pray for New York. I do. My wife and I looked at places to leave Atlanta and maybe move to, and I said, I love New York so much, but who wants to live in New York City right now? And you can get great deals on real estate too, but nah, I don't want to raise little kids around New York right now. I don't. And you can't carry to protect yourself. So, nah. Let's wait and see what Zoran Mandami does now that he won. God, I hope he can do something positive in New York and rally those people. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Listen, make a list. By the way, thank you for watching the show. If you can hit follow, if you subscribe, if you could share the show, write in your questions. I really appreciate you, I do. I try to reach at people right at the street level, with facts and opinions based on real information. I try to show both sides sometimes. I try to be fair about it, but man, getting the word out about the show, I appreciate you. I really do. I thank you for subscribing and sharing and liking. So thank you for all that, writing in your questions. I'm going to go right into my prayer now because I have a lot on my heart for America right now. I really do. So Lord, thank you for your protective hand, and thank you for your guidance, Lord. God knows how much we need you and how much we love you and praise you. And Lord, we have a new mayor in New York City, and I hope, God, you can help this man inspire the people of New York. I don't want anything negative to happen to him. I don't want anything negative to become of his being elected as the new mayor. But for those people who oppose or don't like this candidate being elected, let's hear what he has to say. Let's hear what he has to say. Let's keep him in check. And let's hope that it's not going to be some crazy bedlam going on in New York City now because we have a Muslim as our mayor of New York City. And for all the people that watch my show, stay strong. Stay strong. These are trying times right now. I anticipate that we're going to see some really bizarre stuff in our country in this next year. I really do. And I ask you, Lord, to cooler heads to prevail and help us get out of the last couple of wars that we're still tinkering around in, and help the Ukrainians and the Russians come to peaceful terms. God bless our president and the administration for trying as hard as they do to resolve so many complicated problems around the world. In your name we pray, amen. So that's my prayer. I pray for people who I'm against. I don't just pray for other Republicans or other candidates that I support or other societies or people. I pray for everybody. I want everybody to have a healthy, beautiful life. And I want to somehow figure out a way to work together and live in peace. That's what I would like more than anything. God bless you. And I will talk to you again in just a few days.